Hello and welcome to the channel. In this video we'll see how to create the game of life in Excel using VBA macros. So the game of life was introduced in the 70s by John Conway. It consists of a two-dimensional grid of cells that can have two possible states, either dead or alive. Each cell interacts with its 8 neighbors around and evolves according to some rules. These are the basic 4 rules of the game of life to move to the next generation. So any live cell with fewer than 2 neighbors will die. The second rule is a live cell with 2 or 3 will live in the next generation. Then we have a live cell that has more than 3 neighbors, and that will die. And finally, a dead cell with exactly 3 neighbors will become alive. Let me show you here. So if we have 3 live cells and we apply those rules, you see the cell on the left has only 1 neighbor, so it will die in the next generation. And the same will happen for the cell on the right. However, the cell in the middle has 2 neighbors, so if it has 2 or 3 neighbors, it will live in the next generation. And now those 2 cells over here, they are initially they are dead, they are empty, but as they have each 3 neighbors around, they will become alive. This is quite an interesting game. It has attract much attention because of the ways the patterns can evolve. There is even a classification of the types of patterns that can occur in the game of life. I'm gonna leave you the link of the Wikipedia article in the description. So now let me close this here, and we're gonna start from a blank file, and I have just formatted the range B2 up to AZ34, and I have added a button here that we will associate to the macro. Let's move to the Visual Basic Editor, and I'm gonna double click here, and as you see it opens this window where we can add an event procedure, and we're gonna add an event procedure for the worksheet selection change. So whenever we select a cell here, it's gonna do something, and this is to let us insert the initial configuration. We're gonna use a numerical approach, so each live cell is gonna have the value of 1, and at the same time it's gonna have the interior color black. Okay, so if the active cell value is empty, then we are gonna add to the active cell, we're gonna add the number 1. Else, so otherwise, if it has a 1, we're gonna actually remove the value. Now, I have already added some conditional formatting. We could add that with VBA, but just to make it faster, I have just added with Excel here. So now when we click on any cell, it will add a 1, and because of the conditional formatting, it will mark the cell as black. So now we have we can add the initial configuration, whatever we want it to be, you know, like that. So now let's go back to the Visual Basic Editor. Now we will add a standard module, and here we will have our macro. I'm gonna call it add generation. Okay, and the first thing we'll do, as always, is to declare some variables. So let's see, I'm gonna have a variable for the number of live cells, so I'm gonna call live as an integer, and I'm also gonna have a cell object variable as a range, because we are going to loop cell by cell, and then for each cell we want to check the neighbors around, so that's gonna be a cell RNG, a range around the cell is also gonna be in a variable declare as a range. Okay, then now we're gonna declare an array. I'm gonna call it game R, and I'm not sure, well, we have a range, so we could actually define, but for simplicity I'm gonna leave it as this, and it's gonna be declared as a variant. And then we are also gonna have the game RNG, which is the range of the game, and this is gonna be a range. Okay, and so the first thing we'll do is to set the game RNG is the active sheet range, and we were talking before, we are using B2 range B2 to A set 34. Okay, that's the range with this border here. Yes. Okay, now so first thing we do is to assign whatever it is in the range, whatever values we have in the range, we assign it to the array. So the game array is gonna be the game range dot value. This is gonna create an array with as many elements as cells in that range, and it's gonna be a two-dimensional array. So with the row and the column and the value in each cell. So for example, this up here, which is B2 in the worksheet, in our array is actually gonna be 1, 1, the first item here, and the value of game R 1, 1 is gonna be 1 because there is a number 1 there. Then the cell below is gonna be 2, 1, and the value is gonna be empty. It's not gonna, there's not gonna be nothing, not 0. It's just gonna be empty. Okay, now we start a for each loop. So for each cell, and we're gonna loop through each cell in the game range. So for each cell in game RNG, we're gonna set a range around each cell. I'm gonna call it cell RNG. It's that one we declare here, and that's gonna be a range with cells, the cell dot row comma cell dot column -1. So each -1. So we start at the cell row -1 and cell column -1, and the range is going to be to cells cell row +1, cell column +1. Okay. Okay, so now we're gonna check if the cell dot value is 1. So if the cell is alive, then we're gonna set the live, the number of neighbors alive, as the worksheet function count if in the cell range when there is a 1, but as the active cell is alive, we want to count the other live neighbors, so we're gonna subtract here 1. Okay, and now following the rules of the game, if life is below 2 or life is greater than 3, right, as per the rules. So let me go back here to the rules. So yes, if it has less than 2, it dies, and if it has more than 3, it also dies. So that's what we are writing here. If life is less than 2 or life is more than 3, then this cell will die. So in the game array, for cell row -1 and cell column -1, this is now gonna be empty. And why -1? So I explained that earlier. So the array actually for cell B2, the array is going to be 1, 1. And now, otherwise, it's going to be, it's going to leave. So nothing happens, it continues with the number 1. But so we end the if here, but then else if the cell is empty, so it's a dead cell, okay, we're gonna again check the neighbors around, and in this case we're gonna use exactly the same formula here, but in this case we don't subtract 1 because the active cell is not alive, is 0, so that's not gonna count. So life, and now we're gonna say if life is equal to 3, because that was the other rule here. Let me go back. So here rule 4 says if any dead cell has exactly 3 live neighbors. So here we are. So here we are. If life is 3, then we are going to in the game array cell row -1, same as before, cell column -1, we're gonna change now the value to 1. It's gonna become alive, and we end the if here, and then we end the other if here, and here we're gonna go to the next cell, so it's gonna do that for every cell in that range. And finally, when that's done, we are going to change the game RNG value to whatever it is now in the array. Well, that's basically the code in a simple manner. Now let's go back. Let's assign this to the add generation, and let's see what happens. This is only gonna go one at a time. So now this is what happened to our initial configuration. If we keep clicking, it keeps moving as per the rules. For example, we can see that this cell probably is gonna die in the next generation. Yes, but some other cells were born, and then it keeps evolving and evolving as per the rules. It's quite interesting. It can lead you to anywhere actually. Now we are just stepping in generation by generation. If we want to make it run all together, we can, here in the end, we can say, so if worksheet function count A of the game RNG is greater than 0, so if there are any live cells in the game, then we're gonna call add generation again. And we are actually gonna delay that by 1 second. So let's use the application wait, and it will wait now plus a time value of, let's say, just 1 second. I think it doesn't make any sense to have more than that. So 1 second, and after that 1 second it will call and run again until all cells are dead. And if they are never dead, it will never end. Actually, we you need to add something to this loop or to this macro to stop it. So don't use it as it is now. So now let's click start, and as you see now it's running on its own and it's changing, evolving. It's waiting 1 second every time, and it will run until they all die. Now it seems we reached a configuration that will never die. And there are several such configurations in the game of life. There are some called oscillators also that are alternating 2 positions every generation and they never die. And this one we reached here is one of those configurations that will never die. So that's how we create the game of life in Excel using VBA macros. Thanks for watching.